Hey everyone, it's Chris from Line Punch Forge. Today I've got a saving you money kind of project I'm going to be working on. As you guys all know, ball vices for engraving or jewelry working, they tend to be pretty expensive. Anywhere between $500 and $1,500 if you buy them brand new from a name brand. But if you are willing to wait and look around and spend a little bit of energy and time on eBay, you might be able to find a diamond in the rough. So in the past, I've been able to find things like these guys. This one didn't have a base. I ended up using a rubber material to 3D print a base, and I cleaned it up, removed a bunch of rust, gave it a nice little lubing down, and I was able to create a usable tool for, I think that vise cost me right around $200. So $200, I have a usable vise that's much less than $500 for those of you who aren't so great at math like me. What I have today though is something a little bit rougher than that. I have this guy. I haven't been able to find a brand name on him, but as you can see, he's pretty rusty and nasty and gross and needing some love. So we're going to give him some love. This is going to be about a 2-day project. I'm going to start this video off by taking him apart, and then we're going to be submerging him in a product called Evaporust. After the Evaporust is done in probably around 24 hours, we'll clean him off. We'll go through the process of removing some of the flaky chrome plating, and then show how this guy can be looking brand new once we get done. So if that sounds like a cool thing, saving money and a little bit of work, stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, like I said, the first thing we're going to do is take this guy apart. I'm hoping somewhere along the line I'll be able to identify what brand it is. It is well made. The bearing on the inside is still good. It still does rotate well. I'm going to take the bearing out and show that to you guys so you can kind of see if you buy one of these and the bearing is bad, they're pretty easy to replace. And some of the older ones don't even have bearings, so don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to bring you guys down here, take a look at what I'm looking at. We're going to take it apart and see how dirty this thing is. Okay, most of these guys are constructed pretty much the same. I was lucky that this one actually came with the key, or a key that works well with opening and closing this. Some of them use a hex key like the GRS ones. Others use a flathead screwdriver type, like this guy over here, the little guy that I showed you, uses a square key. So sometimes they're all a little bit different. But the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we can turn this screw. So what we're going to do is turn these jaws so that they open all the way, and we're going to run out the screw on each of these to the end of the main screw here, and it should stop when one of these jaws falls off. Okay, so here we go. There's one of the jaws. You can see it's pretty nasty, dirty, rusty. A lot of these were chrome plated. Just because of some of the chrome plating coming off, we're going to take a wire wheel to this after we get it out of the Evaporust to kind of remove some of that. And the Evaporust is actually going to give it a nice little kind of patina. So it's nice to take pictures of you taking these vices apart as you go so you can kind of remember how to put it back together. I've done this a few times, so it shouldn't be that hard for me. This top jaw here, also very rusty, so we're going to set these rusty parts aside, and they're all going to go into the Evaporust by themselves. And then at the end of this video, when we have it all cleaned up, we'll talk about how to put it back together. There's some fun tricks that you can use to make sure you get it back nice. So same thing, rusty, nasty. It did come with a bunch of these little kind of pegs that go into the vise holes. And so we're going to throw all those into the Evaporust as well. Here's top jaw. Okay, now you're left with typically a main screw and then a cradle that the main screw sits in. Sometimes that looks a little bit different depending on what brand device it is. This one, it just comes right off. So We'll set him aside. And then in order to take the cradle off, it requires a flathead screwdriver. So we're just gonna use that flathead screwdriver. See if I can get you guys a close-up to show you kind of what I'm looking at. So see that screw in there, holding that cradle in. We're just gonna undo him. And this screw and the cradle are also gonna go into the evaporust. Everything we have here is gonna go in. There we go. We got him out. And you can see there's a bunch of gunk and garbage on there. Same thing with the vise. A lot of this plating, garbage. This came from Florida when I ordered it off eBay. So you figure salt water, humidity, all sorts of nastiness. But this is gonna look nice and pretty by the time we get done with it. So now that we have all of the top parts off, one thing that these vices do is that they rotate. There's also this hole here that's missing a peg, and we're going to remake that peg in the video as well. What that peg does is it locks into a hole in the bottom part of the vise and stops the vise from rotating. So we're going to do that too. We're going to make that. And the way these type of vices work is that typically they sit on top of a bearing that rotates, and it's just, see if I can get it to pop, which tells you that the machining is relatively good. It holds air. Hear that pop noise? That gives an indication that the machining was well done. It kind of has a little bit of air bounce to it. Because the air is compressing around the bottom of the post there. So we're going to take him off. You can kind of see him there. I'll back you guys up so you can see. Okay, so we'll pull this off. There's your pop. There's your post. There's your bottom part. There's a little hole we were talking about. And then this other little hole, I'm not sure what he does. He may just be part of the machining process. So we're going to take this jaw. We're going to set it aside because it's going to go into the evaporust. And then in the bottom part here, there's a bearing on the inside of that. I'm going to try and pull that bearing out with a screwdriver. It should just sit in there. And here we are. So this type of bearing is called a thrust bearing because it has a downward force that's applied to the bearing on this surface that allows it to rotate. That's thrusting downward. But the important thing is that most of these bearings have a number on them. So if your vise has a bearing and you need a new one, you can likely find a new one by finding that number online. And you'll look for like MCS Supply or any kind of bearing seller should have that. If you don't have this bearing and you need one, typically what you want to do is measure the inside dimension of the hole, plan on getting a thrust bearing, and then you're going to measure the depth of the hole and the length of that peg, and you're going to want this bearing to be just slightly taller than the difference between the depth of the hole and the peg typically, because you want that post to sit on it and be able to rotate. So this guy's good. We're not going to throw him in the evaporust. I am going to pack him with grease so it has nice kind of lubrication in there. This guy's still good, so we're going to keep him. And then essentially that is the entire ball vise afterwards. Some of these do not come with their base. If you have one that doesn't come with the base, get a hold of me. I can 3D print one. This one is made out of wood and leather, so I'll probably try and refinish this leather, make it look nice and keep the original. But yeah, so now that we've got this whole thing apart, we're gonna grab the evaporust, we're gonna throw it in there, and then I'll see you guys in about 24 hours. Okay, so this is my 5-gallon bucket of evaporust. I keep this in my shop just because I live in Washington, and in Washington it's wet and we get a lot of rust. So I typically keep one of these around. If you deal with rust a lot or you want to kind of refinish tools, it's great to have one of these around. I think a 5-gallon bucket, last time I checked, was about $60, and I had mine delivered to me off Amazon. So also hardware stores, and I think Home Depot and Lowe's sell this as well. But it's a nice product to have around because it is water-based, it's pH neutral, it's non-toxic, non-corrosive, and it's ready to be used, and it is reusable. So it removes rust from bare metal. You don't have to scrub. It doesn't have any acids or fumes, and it's no bad odors or anything. So I really like this. If you deal with impression dyes from Kevin Potter and you deal with rust, one of these is nice to have around. So what we're going to do is open it up, and we're going to throw our parts in there, and then, like I said, I'll see you guys in about 24 hours after that. Typically when it shows up, it's nice and clear. I've used this quite a bit, so it's got a lot of oxides floating in there. The 5-gallon bucket has a little basket, so we're going to take advantage of this basket and put all our parts in there so we can submerge them. I'm going to start with the small pieces, and we'll kind of show you what they look like before they go in. So we've got, let's try and get a little bit more light on the subject. There we go. So this guy's got quite a bit of rust on him. There's my key. And we got our screw. And then a bunch of these little pegs and stuff. Throw those in there. And our top jaws. See how rusty those are. Another little peg, another top jaw, one of our top arms, another one. Since it's still got some okay chrome on it, but you can see it's rusting through. And then we're going to add our base. Starting to get heavy there. I think that's all the metal parts besides this fella here, our top. So we'll submerge him in, and then I'll drop him. So there's our top. We'll take a look at him in 24 hours and see what happens. Bloop. Goodbye.